Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Divine Intervention. I am your host, Erlisha Young. I pray that thus far, Erlisha Young Rents. Y'all, I'm going all the way live. Cut, no chaser, no scripting. Just gonna let it do what it do. I hope that your day has been going well. I hope that you're walking in the peace of God. I pray that you just continue to just be strengthened and encouraged on this day. I just wanted to take a moment out today to just come on and just talk about being uncomfortable. How many of you know that it is so easy for us to get complacent and comfortable in what we consider to be our space or our zone? But how many of you know that when we have a higher place that our Creator wants us to go, we have to be willing to be made uncomfortable? And guess what? He is so loving and so gracious that He will allow things to come in our midst. He's not the author of it, but He will allow it to come in our midst to reposition us. And in this season, there's a lot of repositioning happening and read to each one of us in different types of ways. And you say, well, what are you saying about repositioning? The cost of living is going up, which causes discomfort. And I can give an example off of that. When prices go up, it causes you to have to stretch yourself. Sometimes it causes you to have to get a second job. It causes you to get uncomfortable because sometimes doing one job is not enough. So you have to be willing to be stretched in that season so you'll have the necessary resources to be able to handle the things that are going on around you. How many of you know that it is the same way in the spirit? That God will allow people to come in your life to help sharpen the things that are already on the inside of you. What are you saying when you say that? How many of you know that the word of the Lord declares that when we were placed in the womb of our mothers, that God already knew who we were going to be in this life? But how many of you know that after being born and entering into the world, different things came along and either changed our environmental structure or changed the way that we were taught, or we allowed ourselves to go in environments that altered truly who we were? So as we migrate through this life, we have to be willing to allow God to come in and reshape us, reposition us, bring us back to that place where we originally were. How many of you know that God is love? And with God being a loving God, He says that we were created like Him, in His image and in His likeness. So at the end of the day, the foundation and the core of each and every one of us is love, which is who God is. So throughout the course of life, we picked up things, and sometimes we're not as loving as we once were. There were seasons where we may have walked in wisdom, and it seems like in this season we're not as wise as we were before. And those are just two examples, but I say that to say this. God is bringing you to a place where you can no longer continue to be stuck in those old places, because it's time for Him to take you to another place. Again, I can use a job. You work in a position for 10 years. After 10 years, there should just be something on the inside of you that causes you to want more, to desire more, to want a higher position. Of course, with a higher position comes higher pay. But I can tell you, in the spirit, desiring more, desiring a higher position in the things of God comes with great sacrifice. And sometimes it costs us a lot. What are you saying when you say it costs us a lot? We have to not only give up our own will and our desire, which to most of us is very, very uncomfortable, walking into the new. The unknown is very uncomfortable. It's just almost like purchasing a car and driving it off the lot. You don't know what the outcome is going to be after you sign that paperwork. So in life, we're always taking chances. And sometimes the best way to be able to understand a thing is to give analogies, to give examples of it. I know in this season for me, I've been made very, very uncomfortable. How have I been made uncomfortable? I had to look in the mirror and deal with myself about a lot of things. And how many of you know that that's a very uncomfortable place? To have to look at yourself and say, you know what, you're the issue. And guess what? Sometimes being the issue is not always a bad thing, because you have to mature to that place where when you know that it's time for you to grow up in certain areas, you just have to allow that change to happen. I know with me, one of my greatest things is pain. I don't like pain in certain areas of my life. So what I'll do is try to resist whatever the change is, because I don't want to experience the hurt. But I've learned in this season that you have to just go ahead and let things be what they are, and just believe God as He walks you through it. There have been some moments in this season for me where I literally felt like my heart was bleeding. And rather than, we do things from the inside out. I was trying to heal the outer part of me rather than allowing God to heal the inner part of me. And allowing God to heal some things that were on the inside of me, it would cause me to walk through some painful realizations about myself. We all should be teachable. We should all be humble. We should all be able to accept, like my dad said, positive and negative criticism. That's the only way that you're going to be able to grow and mature into adults. That's what my dad always told me, that if a person tells you something, listen, absorb it, and if it's something that's of value, apply it to your life. But if not, let it roll off. I can think of the times that I was giving either encouragement to someone, but at the same time encouraging someone, I didn't know how to do it for myself. How many of you know before we can do anything for anybody else, we have to be able to walk through that ourselves? So you might say, well, how is it so easy sometimes to make somebody else feel comfortable, but we allow ourselves to stay stuck? How many of you know that God is reversing that in this season? You have to be able to be just as much of an encouragement, just as much as loving. You have to be able to demonstrate those things to yourself before you can do it with anybody else. Take, for example, you could have a person who demands respect, but they're not respectful. You could have a person who demands love, but they're not loving. In this season, whatever it is that you're asking for, you have to be able to give that out. I know many times things come up in life and they throw us curveballs. But I'm reminded that it's those curveballs that come to get us back on course. Sometimes those balls come at us at a fast enough rate that cause us to move out of those places where we're stuck in. Some people are stuck in depression. Some people are stuck in low self-esteem. Some people are stuck in just not feeling like they're adequate enough. Some people are just stuck in some dark places in this season, and they are crying out and they won't change and they want to move, but they don't know how. I can just encourage you, because I experienced something on yesterday. I had been struggling with a situation, and I really won't go into detail. I'll just give you enough information so that you'll get an understanding of where I'm going. But I had been toiling with this situation for the past couple of months. I was thinking more about the other side than thinking about the impact that it was having on me. But I was struggling with this thing. But how many of you know God allowed that door to slam in my face? And it was in those moments that I realized that even when we don't know what's best for us, even when we don't know what to do, we have a Heavenly Father who is always looking out for us. So that's the example of me being stuck in that place for 2 months, not knowing how to resolve the situation, but God allowed an intervention and the door slammed. And when I realized what was going on, I began to just give God the praise, because I didn't have the ability to remove myself from that situation on my own. I was so concerned about giving that situation the best, rather than thinking about the impact that it had on me. How many of you do that? How many of you continue to just work at a thing when you know that it's a detriment to you? We oftentimes do that, but this is the season that God is shifting us, and He is not allowing His children to remain stuck in these dry, dark seasons anymore. I wanted to say these things on today because I'm beginning to realize that every day we are faced with some type of a challenge. But I'm beginning to understand that these challenges come not to necessarily challenge us, but to get us to move, because at some point in time we got stuck. We got complacent in that space. I hope that there was something said within this period of time that not only enlightened you, but encouraged you to just keep going. And when you get in these moments of misunderstanding, or when you get in these moments where you're being forced to move, to look at those things as God's love, that it's God trying to shift you to another place, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you don't understand, even though you may be afraid, even though you don't know what the next is. Just truly buckling yourself down and just trusting your process. How many of you know that you cannot bake a cake without ingredients? You can't even make macaroni and cheese without an ingredient. You have to have certain things to put in the food to make it be what it needs to be. It's the same thing with each of us. All of us have certain things in our life that have to happen to take us to that next place. It's almost like going to elementary school and then trying to skip to high school. No, you have to go from elementary to middle to high school. It's a process that you have to go through to get your diploma. There's a process that you have to go through if you want to be better in life. There's a process. You cannot skip a step. I can use PEMDAS. Anybody who's familiar with math knows what PEMDAS is. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Whenever you're trying to solve an equation, you cannot go from parenthesis and then skip to division. You have to go to the parenthesis and then the exponent. What I'm saying is you have to go step by step by step by step if you want to get the right answer. In life, we have to go step by step by step by step in order to get to that place that we're supposed to be. And sometimes along the way, taking those steps, sometimes you might miss a step. Sometimes you may take too many steps. But I assure you, if you allow the process to work itself out, that you will get to the place where you need to be. Again, a slam door is not necessarily a bad door. A slam door may have come because you didn't want to move. And because God had something greater for you, He had to divinely intervene and cause you to move out of the way so that He could bless you. God loves us just that much. If I'm sure that we all could just think back just to yesterday. There is something that God allowed that we don't even realize it, that allowed us to still be here. Whether it was that distracted car driver, whether it was somebody driving sleepy or texting, or whether it was even something that we had done, but God intervened and He blocked it from overtaking us. A delay doesn't mean a denial. And sometimes a no doesn't mean no, it just means not right now. I have a little bit more that I need to do in you. You're not ready for it just yet. So we have to learn how to not only get comfortable with being uncomfortable, but learn how to trust God's timing. Because remember, God sees all, and He knows all, and He is all. And while we're sitting here trying to figure it out, He's already worked it out. As a matter of fact, God has already gone over into our tomorrow, and He knows what's next. So with that being said, if He is all and He sees all and He's already gone around the corner, why is it so hard for us to trust Him? So whatever is going on in your midst on today, embrace it. If it's pain, embrace it. If it's misunderstanding, embrace it. Whatever it is, just embrace it. I can tell you something like this. I was kind of struggling with doing this episode in just my regular everyday wear, my regular work clothes. And I was reminded that it's not about what I wear, but it's the impact of what is being said that matters. Oftentimes we try to dress up our mess up. We try to put on a facade and try to be things that we're not. Sometimes you just have to be willing, like I did, to be uncomfortable by not getting dressed up and just come like I was. Somebody gonna catch that. This is the Divine Intervention. I am your host, Erlisha Young Rents. I just want you to be comfortable with not being okay. I want you to be comfortable about being uncomfortable. I want you to be comfortable with doors slamming in your face. I want you to be comfortable with knowing that a delay is not a denial. I want you to be comfortable in knowing that God knows what's best for you. Join me live on Saturday at 1 p.m. God bless.